You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach and matchmaker. If you haven't lately, go check out wedeepen.com. You'll see all types of upcoming social and transformational experiences. You'll also see a course by Relationship Renegades. This course has been getting rave reviews. People have been writing in about how it's changing the way that they are relating to their significant other and the way that they are navigating their dating journey. So go to wedeepen.com. It's the Relationship Renegades Higher Love Certification course. Also, upcoming in September of 2023, we're taking a trip to Croatia. There are 30 people who are currently single who are going to board a super yacht, and we're going to have an immersive 4-night, 5-day experience using Aboutly, which is a brain assessment that everybody, before we board the ship, we're going to assess everybody's brains, and we're going to be pairing people based upon their brain makeups. Everybody on the ship, the idea is that we become comrades and we advocate for each other's love life. Doesn't mean that you have to come on the ship with the pressure of being like, I'm going to meet the one, but more so that you're going to bond with a group of individuals. You're going to learn something new. And Francesca Gentile, who is a clinical sexologist and also a teacher of sacred sexuality, BDSM, kink, she's joining us on the super yacht as well. She's been on 2 episodes of this podcast, number 81, and I believe 30 is the other. She's got so much. She says she's 66 is Francesca. So definitely check those podcasts out. And if you're interested in joining us on the super yacht, that is listed on the We Deepen calendar. And then coming up more closely, like just next month, if you happen to be listening before June 22nd of 2023. And if not, this is a yearly event, so it's going to happen again. But the 9th annual Biohacking Conference is happening June 22nd through the 24th in Orlando, Florida. This is Dave Asprey's yearly event. I went last year for the first time. We facilitated the dating dojo there. I've never seen so many gadgets and gizmos and tech products, tech room after tech room, about items and supplements and things that can help you live a longer, fulfilling, be in your resilience and your vitality. I think Dave actually has been said that he wants to live to 180. I don't know why anybody would want to live to 180, but hey, whatever, it's his thing. So definitely check that out. I'll be there. Jet Evelith and I are facilitating the Playful Portal. You can see that a little clip from our rehearsal on my Instagram at Christina Weber. And we've started a small group. There's a group of us that are in a chat room in WhatsApp that are going to be venturing the Biohacking Conference together. So I invite you to come and join us. There's also, when you go to wedeepen.com and you hit on that social calendar, you can click on a link that will add you to the We Deepen WhatsApp group. Join us in there. That's where I share all of the upcoming events so you can stay alert and you can connect with the other people, because why I do enjoy recording the podcast. What I love most is networking all of these experiences and introducing you to other growth-minded people so we get to venture through life and transform and grow together. Love to have you join us. And also, if you're interested in private matchmaking, definitely there's a on the website, you can see that you can submit yourself into the matchmaking database, and I review all of those submissions, and there's some intuitive matchmaking that's happening in the back end, and also some more things that will be presented to you in the future. It's a $25 submission fee, worthwhile if you're currently single and you're open to, embarking on a more expanded intimacy journey. Lastly, before we get into it today, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, follow, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it. It helps me continue to record it. So here today, I am in my bedroom in Austin, Texas, and I am sitting with a dear friend, Elle, formerly known as Hannah Marie Muse. This is actually, it's so interesting. This is the second time Elle and I are recording a podcast together. And the first time we did, there was a feeling of like unshakiness on your end, which I can relate to because recording and hosting this podcast is such a vulnerable experience for me. And truth be told, I have probably about 5 unreleased episodes that I felt a little shaky about myself. And I've even released podcasts and then taken them down because they felt like I have changed since releasing that. And I never want to be, somebody may only listen to Deepen with Christina Weber once ever, and they may hear me at a particular time in my life and make an assumption or a judgment of who I am based upon what I've spoken about in that moment. And here's the thing. We all get to change our minds in every moment. We're always growing. And so I personally never want to be locked into, life is messy. I don't come on this thing and be like, I have it all figured out. Yes, I might be a relationship coach and I may love connecting people and get rave reviews about matchmaking and networking and helping people change their lives. And I'm in the fucking journey with you because I haven't figured it all out myself. So Elle had sent me a text message last week, and there was something so powerful in that message that was like, I am ready. I'm ready to share my story, and I'm feeling like the time is now. So Elle, welcome back to Deepen with Christina. I'm excited to actually share our conversation. Thank you for being vulnerable because I know even who you are in the world. I often tell people like I live my life a little bit where I'm always a tiptoe outside of my comfort zone. And I see that that's what you do as well. It's never, maybe that is relatable to even how you grew up because there is something uncomfortable about your upbringing. So there's like, the growth happens outside of our comfort zone, but there's something even that makes you more able to attune to the uncertainty or the mystery or what's going to happen next.
Thank you, Christina. It's so good to be back. And yeah, I actually function better in the discomfort. And originally that was a trauma response for sure. But luckily now I get to be comfortable in the curiosity and said this earlier on the forefront, right? I really see the one toe in, one toe out as the forefront of what we're learning right now and where society is going, and being able to guide people because we've been in it, or just being able to be in it with people because no one's been in it before. And it's a really cool place to be.
So if we rewind, it was probably about 1.5 years ago when you recorded that podcast. Can you share a little bit now of like looking back to that moment of who you were then and what was coming up for you and of challenging, and then where you're at now?
Thank you. The podcast was about love and relationships. I had just done a date and dine, and it went really well. Actually, it was one of my favorite events, authentic relating, dating. I know that you're into the matchmaking world. So the event itself was spectacular. I know I was so excited to be on the podcast. And what changed is I was drinking still. I was drinking and felt out of congruency actually with sharing what I was experiencing. And now in retrospect, I realize like everything I say, whether I have had a glass of champagne or not, is not really gonna change. I just remember in that moment being like, oh, I have nothing to share with the world because I haven't figured it all out yet. And now I still haven't figured it all out, guys. I'm sorry. But I don't drink, which is cool. And so I just feel more grounded in my truth, and I can stand by it because I've been standing by myself. And why I reached out again is because I did have like a life-changing moment where I got in a car accident. I was not sure what was going to happen. And it made me realize, like, we really don't know what's going to happen. Even if you're healthy and you're going to live to 180 on your own part, like, something can intervene. And it was such an awakening moment where I realized I could be more bold and I could be more available for the things that are important to me and what's important to me and how am I showing up. And it feels really good to just stand as myself, that is a valuable, adventure seeking, curious kitten that has lived quite a journey.
So career-wise, you're an erotic activist. And growing up, that wasn't a direction in school that they said that you go into. Actually, they didn't teach much, little bit of anything about sex for the most part. How does one become an erotic activist?
Oh, it feels so ingrained in who I am. I'm like, I was born and that's how it happened, but we'll get into it. Erotic educator and activist is really what it is. How did I become it? I've been rebellious my whole life. Always seeking to understand, always seeing where, the equation either adds up or doesn't. And I did not get any sexual education. I was born really Baptist. I was taught that you don't have sex and then you marry God and then you finally have sex and you just know what's happening and everyone should just always know what they're doing. And I didn't really have any role models growing up. Bless my family, bless my journey. But even as a kid, like, sex was the thing. I wanted to understand. I remember the first time I felt pleasure. I remember the first boy I loved. I wanted to, I didn't have anything to give him, right? You're like 13. I'm like, I don't have any money. How do I show him I like him? But I wasn't writing poetry yet. So I learned how to give a really good blowjob. Like, it's always been ingrained in me to be curious around eroticism and why is there so much taboo around it? Why, can't we have sex and then we're supposed to know what we're doing, but we come from sex? And, why do my parents fight about sex? And then why does the world sell me sex everywhere in movies and in music, even as a kid? I mean, we think about to the window, to the wall, like our whole lives were so distorted in the way that we get information. And so I was right there with everyone, probably in my small town in Indiana. And it's been a long journey of becoming an activator, an activist, and an educator. I'm going to claim activator because I do definitely activate people sexually in more ways than one.
So I've heard, us being friends for a few years, I've gotten the chance to hear some of your stories, and they're captivating. And they're captivating because it's the things that you've survived and the experiences that you had are so unique. And I see how they've guided you. They've created who you are in the moment. And, I think there's two stories sticking out to me, but one is more of like the simplicity of your journey, in the sense that you grew up, you said you didn't have much role models. You and your mom had a shaky relationship. You still have a shaky relationship with her in this moment. And at 17, you ran away from home. And I think there was one time you told me that you were cleaning houses naked.
Oh my God. I actually really love that story. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So, growing up, no role models, wasn't supposed to have sex, very rebellious. Please don't tell me what not to do because I got to go taste that apple. I mean, who doesn't love sex? Especially, like I said, it's like sold everywhere. Do it, don't do it. Cutting edge woman here. So I ran away from home. I was 17. I was like straight up in the circus, and I met this beautiful French man, and I would clean his house and walk his dog and do it topless. And it was so much fun, honestly, and expansive. And I remember he took me on one of my first road trips across the country. So it was this really interesting, like, access point of, oh, well, I could clean his house, but that seems boring. Or I could like be half naked and take a shower and have a shot of Jim Beam and walk his dog and, you know, maybe give him a kiss. And, oh, well, now we're on a vacation. Like, it was just easy. It was natural, and it felt exciting to be discovering myself is what it really was, because I didn't know what else to do. I was young. You know, going to school, like figuring school out, wanting to know more. And so where do you go when you want to know more? You go to the people that have more experience, that are willing to guide you. And oftentimes that was beautiful men.
I can see too, is like, you know, for me, thinking of doing that at 17, it's like, that doesn't seem fathomable. Like that doesn't even seem like to register as an option, do something that I wouldn't even feel safe in doing. And I think the reason why, is because you talk about I talk about living a little bit step outside of my comfort zone. You grew up feeling in a lot of chaos. And so there's probably more openness inside of you to go adventure and explore it, because it wasn't such a far stretch from where you had been.
Okay. I actually love this. And this is going to take us into the second story, because 100%. My body knows chaos, and I'm so highly attuned to experiences. I have a very intricate ability to feel into what's going to work and what isn't. Call it one of my greatest superpowers. I can just feel things. So I actually never felt unsafe, because there would always be a breaking point when I would know I was unsafe. And even the car accident that just happened, like, there's something really special about my ability to be uncomfortable or edgy, or I like to call it edginess, provocative. Like, you know, I can do this. Lean into it, love it. And then to know, okay, this is actually dangerous and I need to escape now. And that came up when I was sharing with you when I accidentally, on purpose, mostly accidentally, almost got sold into sex slavery and was picked up by a pimp that locked me in the car and took me away for over 24 hours. Which in that case, again, my body was comfortable until it wasn't. And then at that point, like, I truly feel blessed and protected by angels, because I had to do what I had to do to survive, which was escape. And yeah, in other experiences, I oftentimes feel really safe because it's just normal and messy.
So I'd love to go deeper into that story, but before we do, can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek into your childhood?
Okay, sneak peek. I'm just tuning into, what is relevant. I was born before my parents got married. Oftentimes labeled a mistake, but bless their hearts, I don't think they realize the impact of the words that they would say. I have two half sisters. So my mom was stepmom to two sisters from my dad's previous marriage. My dad is a fucking Casanova, guys. Like, he is on his third wife. She's a fox. Our relationship is really good now that, he is split up, and I actually just bow to men, and to him, he's been there in some of the craziest moments of my life, and getting to know him and rediscover my past. Because growing up, my mom was really psychologically and emotionally abusive, a lot of lies, a lot of distortion. I try not to label narcissistic and all of that, but probably textbook. And yeah, like a lot of judgment, like not allowed to like my sisters. My dad was the bad guy. Dad only did things when mom had sex with him, like very programmed from an early age that what was natural was abuse, sexuality, disturbances. The cops were at our house a lot. And my mom got sick from trying to take meds to have perfect skin and the perfect body, and got sick. Oh yeah, I already said got sick, but she was addicted to morphine. And it was just like a beautiful, what is that, avalanche of interesting experiences that I wouldn't change for the world. Like if from a spiritual level, she did her job. Like I don't take medication. I am all natural. I have stepped into communication work and I've worked in dating, and I've really learned how to love myself and to love other people and to even have a grip on what people are like in a safe way. And so I really commend her soul 100% because she gave me everything I needed to rebel, to be who I am. And the journey is the prize. The journey is a prize.
The journey is the prize. And this would then make sense as you're, exploring your sexuality and going out in the world, seeing how the demand is high. There's people want connection. And so one day you have this idea that why not get a pimp?
Oh, yeah. And this is down the road. So, I left home 17, 18, lived in Chicago, like expanded my awareness through Burning Man. So I was also really engaged in a very sex positive, art positive, open relating environment because I'd never had that. So I want to say that, the openness was there. Like I was so thirsty to understand people that enjoyed their lives and to get different flavors. Growing up in Indiana in a church where everyone's miserable, but preaching to God is like confusing. So I'm like, okay, I'm smarter than this. There's got to be people out there. So fast forward, I had been doing amazing and interesting things. Amazing and interesting things in the realm of sexuality, cleaning houses topless. I had a girlfriend that got me into very soft porn. I've never had sex on camera. Dominatrix. Like I wanted to know, and I wanted to wear the outfit, put me in latex. Like there was so much of it that was really exciting, like sparkly.
Were you in San Francisco?
Eventually, that's where the story starts. Yeah. So that was all over, like Chicago, mostly home. And then I moved to San Francisco, Burning Man concerts. Like I had this bright idea. I'm going to San Francisco. I had a beautiful friend. Like I actually had a really good community. I was deep in the art scene. Deep in the art scene, Burning Man, like open-minded people. And I met a woman that, I didn't realize it at the time because I was, even in my non-naivety, like even in my, what is the word for that? Like bold, courageous, go where no woman hath gone before that I knew. There was a woman that was my friend, and I didn't realize was like a full escort, which I had never done in my life. Like I love experiences. And even to this day, I'm still going for the sapiosexual, demisexual connections. I have the personal science backed research that's what makes my whole body and soul happy. But this woman was, like an escort. And it's so funny. I didn't even remember this part of the story. I was fascinated by this woman. Well, she had a great relationship with her mom. I couldn't for the life of me understand why she would do it. Like she was just she had like such a fun life. Like men loved her in the community. We were always at concerts together. Like so cute. Now I get why she did it. But it was like her birthday and we had a hotel room and I had invited my boyfriend, and I get why she was mad at me now for it. She needed that room. But she was like bored or she was busy, and I was like, okay, well, she's busy. I want to know what she's up to. I want to try this new experience. So I got on the internet and found myself a pimp. I'm going to own it. I was on Seeking Arrangements. Like that was the extent of my like sex. Like at this point, I was like, oh, well, I've made a couple videos of me spanking some guys. Like, put a cigarette or two out on somebody's ass. Like, I'm going to do this. Like, I've topless. And this was very PG. But yeah, I wanted a pimp. And I was like convinced that it was going to be a great idea. So I remember packing my bag. This is so funny. I love telling this story because it feels so different now. I packed my bag. It was a Nike bag, I remember. I was ready to go. I was like, okay, I'll go meet up with this pimp. I'll just like see what's up in the industry. You know, like this is going to be fabulous. I'm cute. I don't think I had tattoos at the time. Like I'm highly educated. I'm cultured. I like yoga and I'm a good person. Like let's have tea with this NFL player. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, it's going to be this like really amazing breakfast at Tiffany's experience. So I packed my suitcase to go meet up with my girlfriend for her birthday later. I remember putting it in the first, don't ever do. Put your suitcase in the back of a pimp's car. I put it in the trunk. Never saw that thing again. Because when I had to escape, like I never got my bag back, which was rough. I remember the clothes, the cameras, all, you know, I was going to a birthday party if I was really going to that birthday party. Hashtag my life, a cosmic joke detour, but it's entertaining and cute. So, yeah, so I remember putting my suitcase in the back of this guy's trunk, getting in the front of his car, thinking we were going to grab tea. Cause like, that's where my heart was really like, oh yeah, let's go for an interview. Like you would with a sugar daddy. Tell me about yourself. Oh, you want to massage? You know what I mean? Like real people are out there, even if they don't know how to have deeper relationships, or some of these people really are just open and want to help. Like I have friends that are amazing that I have met in the strangest ways. And this happens offline too. Like we look at our society and it's really normal for there's a radiance exchange naturally that happens. But anyways, I remember this pimp. I get in the car and, yeah, I mean, I didn't get away for like quite some time. I'm trying to think like what it happened, but there were so many things that like put me at the back end of the story. Cause like I said, I was super innocent, really just super fucking curious. Like, also thinking this was something different and but was also like on my phone talking to my girlfriend who was super sexually open and like asking for help and on a Seeking Arrangements website. Like the funniest things came up while I was in the car with this pimp. So he assumed that I knew exactly what I was doing and that I was the perfect girl and locked the door, took me across the bridge. Like I don't think I got scared until he started bringing up like, well, you're my girlfriend now. And tomorrow we're going to go shopping. And I'm like, tomorrow we're going shopping. I need to go to a birthday party. But he's like, but you're so good at this. Like, so good at what? You know, it was very like psychologically like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. And gosh, I mean, like what?
Didn't he take you to a house? He took you to...
He took me to his house for drugs, which I did. I was like so scared. It was actually that point when I was already thinking like, okay, do I run away? But where am I? Like we were in the hood somewhere. So I'm like, if I run away here, where do I go? Drugs. I don't even know what those drugs were. It was not a very high-end neighborhood. This was not the interview that I had expected to be my intellectual, charming self. Yeah, so he took me to his house, which also like probably drove around for ages because he didn't want me to know where I was. I had no idea where I was. My bag is locked in the back of the car. I'm freaking out, but not freaking out because I've been in interesting situations. So I'm not 100% sure it's time to freak out yet. Like I know when it's time to freak out. So I'm just observing. And then the whole thing is like, and then we get to a hotel. And so that is when I really started freaking out. Because not only did he create this alternate ego for me that was not me, that was disgusting, that were things that I had never done or seen, that I was not excited about. He put it online and people were calling immediately, but I was not prepared for it. And plot twist, there was another woman. It was like probably his real girlfriend that came. And like, while this is all happening and I'm in this hotel room, like not even sure where I'm at. I think I had a fake phone at this time. Like he had switched out my phone. I think my ID was involved. Like I had a small purse that wasn't a part of it, but that's all locked in a safe. And this woman is like talking about how her brother threw somebody over the San Francisco bridge the day before. And so I'm like hiding in one corner, just chilling, you know, trying to keep it cool. They're fighting about some like incredibly dramatic shit that at this point couldn't have even been real, you know, Christina. Like was so naive. That could all be stuff to like mess with people's minds. Like if we're thinking in the macro of like how this probably happens to women more than we know. And, whether it was real or not, that was my cue of like, okay, this is probably not a safe space for me. And I am now petrified and disgusted at what this person expects me to do for the next 24 hours or night to then take me shopping as I'm now his pet. Like, the story just kept getting weirder and weirder. And I was just like, all right, okay. Yeah, it was actually really scary. It doesn't feel scary right now though, but it was petrifying in the moment.
And you had sessions, he booked sessions. So you did a couple sessions and then after those sessions is when he fell asleep and you got out of there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So thank you for keeping me on track. It's just such a touchy subject because there is a lot of fear and, not for me in this moment, but just like the experience was so real. And so they've had these conversations. The woman is going to get people. So there was so much people wanted to see me. Well, the person on the website that was not me. And they wouldn't even get there because this African-American woman would go and then she would show up because I wasn't allowed out of the room. Like that's how tight. I was not allowed out of the room. There were people that would go and get people and bring them up to my room. And it was this whole thing. So some guys didn't even come because they were like, fuck that shit. Like, who's that girl? You know what I mean? Like there's this whole like weird process. So some people come, some people don't come. Some people come. I can't even remember, honestly, because there was one client that came and ended up being the hero of the night. So I had a client come. We actually had a really beautiful connection, like, which I love sharing about this. This is why I'm an activist for eroticism. Like, I loved this person, not like love, like, oh my God, I'm going to be with him forever. But it was fun. Like, he told me about his relationships and where he was struggling. And I got to be real enough while petrified. I don't even think I had sex with him, honestly. Like, I don't think I had sex with anybody that night. But he left and I had gotten his number. So I actually had his number, which thank God for some smart part of me that was operating at a higher functioning level for this moment. I'd gotten his number. And mind you, at this point, they're frustrated because I'm not pulling in money like I should be because I'm not the person in the thing. I don't want to do what they want me to do. There is a lot of operating movement that other people kind of, you can smell it's fishy. There's like something fishy happening here. And so this guy fucking fell asleep. He fell asleep in the corner. The pimp fell asleep in the far corner of the room. And I can still to this day, I remember doing a Vipassana and I was violently shaking in this Vipassana because it finally had all come up. So I am like shaking for my life and I'm doing math in my head. Like, okay, they let me out of the room once. I know that there's an elevator over here. I know that there are stairs to the right. I know that if I can get to the elevator, I can close the door fast enough. You know, I'm like, okay, I have enough information right now to escape. Mind you, my suitcase is gone. Fuck that thing. While he is asleep, sneak over. I get my shit out of the safe. And by the time I have now opened and closed the door, he's woken up. By this moment, I'm running for my life, getting into the elevator, watching a like 7 foot, okay, like probably 6'3" foot guy run after me. The elevator door closes. Like this is the amount. It's like split seconds. The elevator door closes. He can't get his hand in. My heart races. So I go downstairs. He is chasing me in this stairwell. Elevator door opens. I bolt. He's right behind me. And I make it to the foyer, to the, what is that, concierge. The man stops where the door ends. So you cannot see him. So there is like a pimp now standing just out of sight from the concierge, mouthing to me that if I don't come over there, he's going to kill me. I need to come back. What do you think you're doing? We're going shopping tomorrow. Like, whatever, you know. And I'm shaking for my life and go to the concierge and I say, hey, there's a very large black man standing over there. I've been stuck in this hotel room for like however many hours. I just need you to stand here so that I can make a couple calls and get somewhere safe. I mean, how I kept my composure is another miracle in itself. So I had that client's number. And that client came and saved, like, he literally came to pick me up. He let me sleep at his house. I show up at my fucking friend's hotel the next day and she's like, what were you doing? I swear to God. And this is the industry. This is the industry at the time, and we're changing that. That's what conscious sexuality, that's really what I stand for. Erotic activism is creating conscious relationships and relationships that work for people. Clear communication. We'll get into that. But I swear to God, I got to the hotel the next day and she was like, you went to get a pimp without me? I was like, I almost just died. I was worried. It was like the relationship that we had, like, didn't even withstand that moment. Like, I went back to my friends after that. Like, I was living with someone I considered my older sister, but I'll never forget, like, she was like mad, but like mad that I was going to go do something different versus like mad that I had just spent like 24 plus hours freaking out about my existence, trapped in a car, trapped in a hotel room, having to run away from a scary black man that had talked about killing people, throwing bodies over bridges. And it was insane because, like, who do you talk to when the person that you were having fun thinking this was a joke with is not even available? And I did get to tell my girlfriend, though, when I got back. I was like, hey, I lost your camera. And I almost died. And she was really helpful. So I always had support. But what I found fascinating was the fear, actually, Christina. I found out later, because they were still texting the phones that they had given me, like, fuck you, bitch. Like, we got your stuff. Like, what are you going to do with my stuff? You know, I wish at the moment that I had more courage or confidence in me. I found out later that they had put the hotel room on a credit card. So had I felt safe to say these things, their information would have been all out. And that's one thing I do regret, is that I was so scared of getting in trouble for my own thing that I was like, not even fully like, it was just such a funny experience for me. Never did it again, mind you. Check that one off your life list, guys, or don't.
It's interesting. I hear it's when you talk about it, it's almost that there's some compartmentalizing of the experience. Like, it's almost that I hear you speak of it like it was a movie, like it happened to somebody else.
Yeah, it does feel like that sometimes. And I think part of that person, like that part of me didn't come back after that. Like, I didn't ever want to go do that again. I wanted to do things different. I wanted to do things smarter. Okay, I'm still going to be curious. Like, how do we be curious a little bit more communally? Why don't I feel safe to talk to my friends? You know, I have people that are supportive. I'm in a community of humans that are doing the same things as me. Like, why did I think I needed to go off on my own on this, like, adventure? So thank you for calling that in. I actually, like, don't believe things like that exist too. Like, it does not make sense to me, which maybe I can even work on this. Like, how can I love with more of an open hand? You know, how can I let go and surrender even more? But it doesn't feel like that's a real experience that people should have to deal with. And then to feel afraid to where I think one thing that, like, to regret so much of not getting justice. Because if I was one of those girls, I mean, there had to have been more. Where are the other girls? Like, where are they?
Yeah, that is a human trafficking experience. You were trafficked.
Yeah.
This got brought up. I think you and I were having a discussion on, through Feminine Weapon, I've done a lot of work with children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking. And I think often times about, you know, here in Texas on our cell phones, I mean, the amount of Amber Alerts that happen on, you know, sometimes, some weeks it's like 3 of them and you're like, whoa. And sending the prayers, and I started sending more of like the fuck yous to the people that are taking the children or it's not even just children. It's happening in the stories that I hear oftentimes of women getting lured into these experiences. And I remember saying, we were talking about how do you end the cycle? And really, I mean, it's the demand. You have to hit the demand for it. And there is such a demand. I think you had said, Christina, if you were to go on one of these seeking arrangements or websites right now, you could have a client within like minutes. Like it's so available. People are craving it. And it's interesting because if I rewind to earlier on, you had said in your early teenage years, around 13, that you liked a guy and you're like, I didn't have anything to give him, but I could give him a blowjob. It's like there's this innate desire to give, like, what do we have to give? And the purest thing that humans become from sex. And so for connection, there's this thing of giving sex. And so the demand is high, and that's how we also feel connected to each other. And there's all types of, I don't think I've done an episode specifically on the erotic blueprints just yet, but I do plan to do that in the future. And there is a percentage of the population that their blueprint is sexual. And so, which means that they are craving sex, and it's not necessarily, we could dive into sex addiction or love addiction. And there's that's happening too. But people aren't, we came out of the pandemic. We aren't taught in school. Not only do they neglect sex ed, but there's a neglection of relationship education and communication. And so what do we even say to another person when we have these needs filled? Now, we are in these conscious communities, and here in Austin, Texas, and there are, sex parties happening often, or play parties. Let's call them play parties. And that was even one of, there's an episode of this podcast called Hedone Adult Central Retreat. And that episode is probably one of the most listened to episodes, which was, Lola, who I recorded the show with. She has this strong accent. And I remember first recording and being like, oh, are people going to be able to understand, the Americans understand this thick accent? And they did, because that is one of the most popular episodes. And I've been talking a lot about sex. I mean, I fucking love sex. I'm having enjoying a deep sexual connection right now in my life. But it's, we go through ebbs and flows with our sexuality, and there isn't sex ed available. So we're all kind of like out in the wild, like we're in the wild, in the mess of it, wanting to make connections. And also, in America, we don't even know how to talk about it from a, I think there's a one time that you were talking about that you were working with a platform who was going to, take, I don't know if you want to call it sex work, but they were going to do it in a conscious way, and everybody was going to, be like paid well for it, and it was going to be legal. And, but things like that haven't really come to, because you get religion, everything gets all buckled into it, and it's a mess. And so, but it's really the demand for sex is super high because people aren't getting it, aren't understanding it. And I am, I'm a part of Facebook groups like the Esther Perel discussion group, or Healing from Infidelity, or there's a Facebook group that's called, this is the group where we tell you to leave him. And I listened to story after story after story of relationships breaking down. And a lot of it is happening from a sexual connection. Someone cheated, somebody, they're how many, this curiosity of how many times do we have sex? We don't know how many times we're supposed to have sex, and have different levels of desire or needs or ways of relating. Sometimes the love is there, sometimes not. So even the confusion around what love is. So how, as now somebody who's passed this experience and has had many other experiences since then and stepped into, I think you went through this tunnel of like trying out things, discovering, I said, as we started, like, I feel like you've been through this like such a transformational life experience, many transformational life experiences that have molded to you today, to then come out with this title of, an erotic activist or activator, an erotic activator. Where does this leave you today and how you view sexuality?
Wow. Such a great question. And, how does this lead me today? I mean, I've taught at Hodone. Like, I love these communities that are creating safe places for people to explore. We're incredibly intelligent animals, if we think about it, and a world where we could actually be in our highest expression of sexuality and of living would look so different than it does now. If people were educated, if people knew how to get what they wanted, and if there was compassion and understanding and unconditional love around our peculiarities, like how different each person's journey is. And we talked about this before, like we're all discovering things at different rates and different moments in life. And, if we were more open about it, if we had more spaces where we could be ourselves, then the whole paradigm would be shifted. And I feel so blessed because, of course I love sex. Of course I love connecting with people. Of course I love even seeing people in pleasure. Like, these are things that I never got growing up. These are things that I didn't anticipate. I just didn't even know the world. But what I see now for me is gosh, I know where I'm at is what matters to me is this rich depth of connection, because I've seen so many other things. I've seen hungry people. I've seen, honestly, I do. Okay. For me personally, I love depth and connection. I want to make love to the same person I cry to. That just to me lights me up. Sapiosexual, demisexual, but I'm also very open. I've seen the healing power of sex, and I've also obviously seen being trafficked. I've seen the scariest sides of the industry, honestly, which thank you for pointing that out. I've been to the dark edge, but I've also seen some of the most beautiful, healing, life-changing moments with men that are autistic or have never had loving touch. And they'll come to me and they'll be like, so many people are mean to me. Other women or other whatever I was up to at the time, tantrikas, whatever it is. And to be in a space where I know the healing power of sex, where I know the healing power of connection, I know the healing power of love in this expression is why I still show up. And why activism and education is so important. I remember one of the first classes I ever taught was called Erotic Revolution. ER, because it's an emergency. It's an emergency that we wake up to our power as erotic beings, the joy, the vitality, the life that flows through us when we have our needs met, when we feel good about ourselves, when we're supported by community, when we know, what did I say? There are 4 things to having these rich sexual connections.
Yeah, you did. I wrote them down before we started. These kind of tenets to have a beautiful sexual experience is knowing yourself, communication, expressing your truth, having a supportive community to process experiences with, and then values and self-love, the power of the purpose. What's the intention of the experience?
I even just hearing it makes my fucking heart light up, because I actually see sex as a technology. I see pleasure as a technology. I see it as an expression of science. And so being able to know what you need and want, kudos to people that are reaching out and asking for those things in the right way. Kudos to people at play parties.
Can I say, though, what if you don't know what you want because you don't even know what's available to want?
Well, let me tell you, from a lot of life experience, I could cry. You make a lot of mistakes, or you ask people. I learned through movies and tried to find a pimp. No, but I also had a lot of community. I had like older sisters. I had inspiration. And if you don't know what you want, then you get to taste test. And that means having a lot of unconditional love and support so that you can discover what works and what doesn't, and to love what is. Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that is ruins sex and discovery is shame or guilt. But what I'm finding more and more in life is that it is incredibly messy. No one really knows. And you'll never know what you truly want until you try. Yeah.
What did you teach at Heatney?
Oh my God, I taught Spank Bank. I was going to do an erotic dance class too, but there wasn't time. So I'll do that in the future. But Spank Bank is all around erotic archetypes and learning how to spank to fill up your bank, metaphorically speaking. But the power behind it was too, like I got a lot of spankings growing up and they were not the erotic kind, but how do we rewire our brains to start to lean into these things that used to really pain us? And how can we start to find pleasure in them? How can we start to find play in our past, power in the pain? And so it was a hit. I mean, she invited me to Berlin, so it went really well. But yeah, that's the lightheartedness. Like, there's so much that you can discover through just like these playful, edgy. I actually really loved that too, because there were a lot of newbies at that play party. And to see, I remember I got to give my first spanking and receive my first spanking from somebody who had never done it, and to like teach him and guide him through and to help him put on a, I want to say like not a mask, but like try on something for size. Like I helped people by giving them ideas. Like, you're the king of the castle and your priestess didn't show up to the round table meeting and she needs to know the impact of her mess up, of her missing the moment, like just like helping people discover themselves. It can be fun. It doesn't have to be so scary, which is why I do what I do.
So before we started recording this, you had mentioned that that you're now thinking about sex in procreation ways. Like you're interested in, stepping into, there's some biological component of you that's coming online, and you're like, I don't want dick unless it's going to be the father of my children. And then you had you had a follow up with like, well, maybe not. I don't know. I like to think it reminds me of, there was a phase, years ago, when I was in Los Angeles, and I had, have you ever heard of the ladder theory? The ladder theory is that men have one ladder and women have two ladders. And men have one ladder. It's like it's like all women fit on this ladder of like, they would pretty much fuck them all. Women have two ladders. They have the friend ladder, and then they have the guys they would fuck ladder. And it's really hard for a man to jump ladders from one to the other. Laddertheory.com. You can look up ladder theory. I realized that, like, for me, that I kind of reframed the ladders, and I had two ladders. I had a ladder that, okay, this is the ladder of men that I'm going to, play with and be open to, that are, there's like a ladder for like playing and just so I don't, because I'd been through stages in my life where I hadn't had sex for a year and a half or 2 years, and you've never had that stage?
Never had that stage.
I did. It's like these accidental celibacy stays. The first podcast, which if anyone listening, you can scroll back to Your Love Accomplice, but I recorded a podcast from 2017 to 2018, an entire year. And I remember getting to the end of that year and realizing I hadn't had sex the whole entire time. I was recording Your Love Accomplice, which is a relationship podcast. And I was like, this is no good. Like, I can't believe that I've been talking about love for an entire year and have been dry. My vagina is dry. And I went to Burning Man. I recorded a podcast I'd never released there. Went to Burning Man. Was like, I need to have sex. That was like my intention. So night 1 of Burning Man, I went out and it was the first time I ever like ventured to find sex, first time ever, with like the intention. And I found this like beautiful man and we had this great experience. And actually it was a nice experience, but it was the burn and it was like late at night. And I think he jammed his fingers too far at me that by the time we had sex, it just was like kind of painful. And I went back to my camp and said to, what my campmates and my RV guy friend, Stefan, and I was like, hey, how do I not get a boyfriend on the first night of Burning Man? He's like, just don't make plans. And I was like, okay, good. God, don't make plans. Anyway, fast forward. So I ended up like, that was the end of that podcast. I then jumped into a relationship with somebody, went on a whole journey with him, and never recorded an episode of Your Love Accomplice again. So back to these 2 ladders, I had decided that like, I'm not going through phases like that again. So I have 1 ladder of men that I am open to playing with, so I don't goes dry and I can keep my sex, because sex is good for your health. I mean, it's for your vitality. I mean, it secretes hormones that are helpful. There's even like, Francesca Gentile on one of recent episodes talk about that it's great for the body to be in a state of arousal for a minimum of like 45 minutes. And so this 1 ladder, and then I had a second ladder, and the second ladder was father of my children ladder. And at any time the men could jump from one ladder to the other ladder, but I wasn't going to go out in the world and put so much pressure on that. Like, I'm not going to have sex, because I had done that. Like, I'm not having sex until I meet the father of my children. And then I'd go through these dry spells. So I need it both in my life. I am in a current situation where I've been seeing somebody and I don't have sex. I don't have penetrative sex. And the reason I do that is because I know that I like this human. Like, I really like him, and I just I know that it will activate my fertility, and I'll suck up his sperm and become pregnant. So it's just best to keep it away. And we can play in all other ways, and it's super enjoyable, and I don't have to do that. Now, you said communication and expressing your truth is really important in having a beautiful sexual experience. And so it's this, because here's the thing, when you're early on in a sexual, because you don't know if the person should be the father of your children for real. Like, you're not quite sure, but we're horny and we want to have sex. And so it's this delicate dance, because when we neglect to have the conversation around exclusivity, because we want to be in the moment and you want to enjoy it, but then we do it and it's hard to rewind into it, and the guy's still, again, you don't really know if that person's the one, and sometimes depending on where you're at in your life, you want to keep exploring. So how does, and also knowing for a woman, generally, I mean, we're surrendering, we're opening, you're coming inside of us, you're penetrating us. And so that's a vulnerable experience to open to a man. And there's something more from a hormonal aspect that happens to a woman in that experience. And I've heard for years, decades, they tell us like, women, be very cautious and don't do it, but we're human and it's messy. So how do you suggest that somebody have these conversations when, number one, you're aroused, you're horny, you want the dick inside of you, and also, on the other side of that there's potentially anxiety and, we're human and the mind does crazy things in trying to process experiences.
I love that. Honestly, babe, I think that you're doing it the right way. Like, and I love this, the different ladders that you've had. Like, I have erotic experiences in my life. I love those experiences because I know what they are, because it's very clear. It's very labeled. Like, I have my boundaries set. I have the meaning set. Like, what does this mean to me? Oh, I want to give you this experience. Oh, I want to receive this experience. Oh, I've never done this. Like, that happens before, which honestly, I did not have that tool until I learned it like 4 years ago, being able to sit down before a sexual experience, or not even before a sexual experience, like on a first date. Like, what are your boundaries? What are your desires? What's the meaning of this? What are you looking for in life? How does this align? How does this not align? And that's a conversation that you actually learn in a lot of tantric spaces, a lot of play parties. And I personally have had such great experience with just not having sex with people. If I think that there's something more, I actually will not have sex with them until I've discovered more. In a real life way, like, let's hang out. Let's be friends. Write me a poem. Let me write you a poem. Ooh, butterflies. Oh, no butterflies. You know, I actually think I have more erotic experiences with people that I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. I know how this can be. I feel safe in this. I know that I can be myself. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And so that's, again, like the self wisdom. It's the reflection. It's getting connected to yourself and seeing, you know, if you have tripped 3 times, what were you tripping over? And how do we stop tripping over that? Which for me, I would get really like panties knotted up. Like, I'd either have sex with somebody and we would immediately be in a relationship, and then I would be confused because our values didn't align. And I'm like, well, why am I doing drugs at midnight with this person? I don't want to do drugs, like, you know. Or it would be, totally lost my train of thought thinking about the past. Oh yeah, I used to just have sex with somebody and fall into a relationship, which I wrote a book called Partner Up, where you don't fall into relationships. Why are we falling into relationships? But the alternative would be that I would have sex and then feel the actual science, the physical body, the emotional body, like go into these like spin outs because I wasn't sure the meaning. Oh, are they on the same page? Like, are we barking up the same tree? And so what I love about like being an activist or an activator is how can we be turned on in life? How can we make our own turn on so exciting that when we're in turn on, we can communicate that we're in turn on. When we're in trigger, we can communicate. It's like all the same spiritual practice, but yeah, like discovering a life that is so exciting and juicy for oneself through in self-pleasure practices, but lifestyle, like feeling good in the body, like being connected to your own touch, and then being able to communicate that to other people so you know what is going down. There really doesn't need to be any of those hard moments anymore.
So what if somebody's listening right now to this podcast, and man or woman, they are in a sexual relationship and they haven't talked about exclusivity? And what do they do? And even too, it's like, let's even also all the things that could happen, because they have the conversation and what's most, you know, great, they're on the same page. Let's say, fuck, amazing, they're on the same page. Now, however, you know, this is a new connection and people are in all different stages and spaces of their life. So what if they're not on the, what if they're not, one or the other is not ready for exclusivity, but they're enjoying the connection, and the other one is enjoying the connection too, but more of interested in exclusivity?
I mean, these are like the most sweet and sacred intricacies of life. Like, that's a choice point in oneself. Like, do I continue to lean in and let my heart open, knowing what I want, but knowing it's not there?
And it's not there in this moment because everything is present right now in the moment. And we don't know if when anything moves.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's all yes and. Like, yes in this moment and what's possible. I love this too because there's so much tenderness. I think it's the staying open and then having the communication around, okay, well, then I'm going to keep doing my thing and have this relationship. I'm going to keep exploring. You know, I love like the fantasy, right? Because like, oh, well, what if it happens? What if it doesn't? What if there's something better? That is something that has taken me years to integrate. Like, what if there's something better? You know, if there's this possibility and this connection with this person, do I need to throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. Am I going to sit around and wait? Probably not. But that's where the like authenticity comes in. That's where the raw, like, I bring up the poem Araya, Mountain Dreamer. It's this poem about like just being your fully most expressed self in all moments and like letting the people that want to show up. And is anything purely exclusive? Like right now I'm getting super existential. Like, is anything actually ever purely exclusive? I'm in a relationship with you right now. I have a friend outside, you know, like exclusivity to what? What are you being exclusive to? Like, your heart is just theirs. Their body is just theirs. Like, first of all, their body is just their own. Like, you get to experience it. So, wow, that got existential fast. I'm even toying with that. Like, what does exclusivity mean? Does exclusivity mean like, oh, I only want to show up with you right now? I want this to be like really special between us? Or is it, if you ever talk to somebody else again, like, you're in trouble? You know, we've got such a distorted reality of what relationships have been. How are we even like that? That is the personal part. That's you living your own design, fearlessly going where your own edge exists.
It's interesting because I think of like, you know, you're in your 30s, like mid 30s, right? 33. Okay. Oh,
Mid me yet?
You're not mid. You're early 30s. I'm in my early 40s. And we both have sex with, you know, lots of people. I've had many sexual experiences of being a woman who's never been married to another human being. I've married myself. You can see that on my Instagram recently, but I've never been married to another human being. And the longest relationship that I've had has been 5 years. And we were monogamous with each other during that period of time. But otherwise, I have been, you know, having sex since I was 16. And this idea that I'm going to find one person and only have sex with that one person now for the rest of my life, and he's only going to have sex with one person for the rest of his life. I am generally like, from an energy, like what's really important to me is like how somebody spends their energy and where their focus is going. I think that's the most kind of attractive. If somebody's like a little chaotic and all over the place, and you know, I would never want to necessarily be with a partner where we're together and they're like seeking. There's like seeking energy out there, you know, are feeling as though friends felt that my significant other was hitting on them. However, at this stage in my life, I can't, like, I used to romanticize that. That's something that was obvious, but I've just seen the breakdown over and over and over again. And, you know, Alora, who's a friend of yours too, Alora Nana, and I've done a podcast with her, and she talks about in the podcast about eradicating the words cheating and infidelity. And more of just being ourselves with another human being moment by moment, and opening ourselves up. Because I think in that conversation around the exclusivity and one person wanting sexual exclusivity and the other one maybe not ready to be sexually exclusive, it's how how does is a brain thing? I would love to say this is, I hear you on stop intellectualizing heart work. However, there are hormones that are being released in the brain, and the experience of when you're falling in love, the brain is the star of the show. And we are in our connections with another human being. I often say, some people will say to me, "You're being so heady, Christina." And I'm like, well, I'm an Aries. We're heady. We're Rams. And also too, is like, I got to get past the head to get to my heart. Like, help break down all the walls with me. Let's do it together. And love, I think, is different. I really do think sexuality of seeing now the trending like play parties and the experimenting happening. And I always couldn't wait to be in like a relationship to go and like explore sexuality. For me, you're so brave to be able to like, I'm going at it solo. I think for me, if I'm in my teens, it was like I had a high school sweetheart. Like there was always somebody that I was attaching myself to, and like him and I would go on something together that I never had to go alone, but I never really went alone. To go alone was actually more scary for me because I didn't know how to navigate the energetics of the seeking and the feeling as though I'm the prey. So yeah, I think of being in that experience of not having had that conversation. And if you are not aligned in where the two of you are at, because I've been there so many times, my heart has been there, and not wanting to ask the question and not wanting to talk about it. And not just, I'm now about like anything that I want to say, like I've been through too many of the experiences, like it's coming out right away. Like I'm asking all the questions, all the things, because when I withhold it, it drains me. And so you're going to get the full experience. I call it the Christina experience. You're going to get the full Christina experience. So give somebody the full experience of you. And, the pillars of a conscious relationship that I like to stick with are no attachment to outcome. Growth comes first.
What was first?
No attachment to outcome of the relationship. Growth comes first. Both parties agree to own their own shit. All feelings are welcome and no internal process is condemned. And the relationship is a place to practice love. And, what men I hear, it's been joked about, is like men don't realize like that a woman starts the relationship the moment you say hello. The relationship has begun. Like she'll remember everything from that moment on, if she likes you, or if there's something potential within inside of that experience. And so whether it's a committed relationship or exclusive relationship, there's a relationship happening. And if you are sexually intertwined in any which way, there should be, not should, I mean, should is a thing, but like to have a conscious connection, there'll be some form of like break up or separation or disconnection or uncoupling if you decide to stop engaging. Unless that's, again, this is where communication comes in. We've done, at Unleash and at consent parties, there's, consent exercises that two people can do together, like fears, desires, and boundaries is one that's super simple. If both parties take the time to share their fears, their desires, and their boundaries, and each going back and forth.
I absolutely love that. I mean, and that's simple. And it's actually like, it's funny, are we going against our programming by wanting to love more openly? We really are. We're like fighting our brain chemistry to not want to own things because it is so natural. That's why people get together, because they're like, oh, I feel good with this person. This person makes me happy. And I think that everything just always works out. Like I have seen some of the most beautiful relationships that my friends have created where they're very in love and very partnered, but very open. And there isn't any infidelity, because that word is so weird, because they talk about it. And like you said, like no internal process is condemned, and like be yourself, be your real self. Like I get to bring all of me to an experience, and somebody gets to love all of that, or else how am I supposed to function and have deep, meaningful, mind-blowing sex that changes reality? Because those moments are so accessible, and they only come when there's like real deep soul connection, when there's fearlessness. You know, I'm going to say this. This is so funny. I have had some of the most profound moments with my clients in the past because, and this is, I was still learning. I was like in authentic relating, leadership training, like the risk was so low with them. I could be so real. There was nothing. They, you know, wherever we had connected, like all of it was already like the scariest thing I've told clients about the trafficking story, like because it was already safe. Like we had met, I call it behind the velvet curtain. We met behind the velvet curtain. So it was almost deeper and easier and more safe to be all of those aspects of myself, and then to share about the part of me that like teaches yoga, you know, to go into all of it. And so when we can start to take away the, the risk, like the risk of being ourselves, when we can start to take away the risk of exposing, and which would like even today, like exposure, like I'm exposing a piece of myself. We can take away the risk. I'm going to cry too, because it's so beautiful to then be in those moments where it's just like person to person and heart to heart and body to body. And whether it lasts forever, 2 hours, like it's so, like, it's like, it really is God. It's like the closest we'll ever get. It like tickles my soul. It like tickles my soul because I love this. I'm going to circle back. Yeah, I'm not ever having sex again until I have a baby with this man. And I had sex last week at a play party. You know what I mean? Like, but the thing was, it's all just learning. It's all relationship that I discovered even at the play party. Like the two men held me while I cried because I was like, I'm in pain from my car accident, and it was so touching, and they held me. So then I opened more. I'm like, yeah, let's do this interesting thing. Yeah, and it was actually really beautiful. And my mind wants to tell me that it wasn't okay because I'm not gonna be in a long-term relationship. And my heart is like, they care about you. They've been in your world. They want to be in your world. They want to hold you when you cry. And I think that's what that's the edge of society that we're standing on right now. That's what an erotic fucking activist is. Like we are at the forefront of what we are creating and living for and being real about. And, you know, anything is possible tomorrow. So why not live fully today? Yeah.
I love that. I totally love that. Elle, this has been such a great conversation. How do you feel about this podcast?
Well, I feel present in my body. I feel good. I feel real. I feel safe too. Like I feel the authenticity. It was time.
It was time. It was time. Before we wrap, is there anything that you feel is burning to share that you want people to know?
Wow, what feels burning to share? You know, what comes to my mind is actually we oftentimes, and I'll speak for myself, I grew up judging sex, judging connection, not knowing what it was. And like, I got to go into the things that probably churches are afraid of. You know what I mean? Like the things that were so scary, the things that I judged, the things that my family judged, like I've touched so many of them. And there's still only love and worthiness. And I think that's my permission slip to other people is you don't have to hold something very long if it's so hot. Like you can hot potato life if it really isn't for you. But to reach into spaces and conversations and relational techniques and desires that maybe feel outside of your comfort zone or even a little taboo, not to wear them forever, but to just know and to empathize and then to relate to people in a really loving way. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. It's really important. And for being open to talk about sex and sexuality and to support people along their journeys. Is there any programs or things that you have upcoming?
Thanks for asking. I love you guys so much. I really wanted to say thank you because I adore you. I adore this community. This is a place where people get to explore. And it's been an honor working with you and with the community for so many years. I'm excited to see what comes next. Right now, I have been more so making music. So I would love people to follow me on Instagram and Spotify. It's Elle.Eminense with an S. I pray every day, like the power of prayer and purity. And right now I'm just working on music videos, music. I have programs coming up in the future, but I'm having fun getting to know myself and playing in that realm.
Thank you for coming back to doing another episode with me and for shooting me that calling, that arrow. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do subscribe, like, follow, give it 5 stars. It helps me continue and helps more people find it. And also, I'd love to see you in real life. So definitely go to that calendar, wedeepen.com, check it out. You're more than welcome to message us and ask any questions about any of the experience. There's more to come as well. Okay, bye for now. Love you.